Thank you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. We will start the lecture and let me share the screen. Okay, here we go. Right, monetary policy. That is our topic today. We completed our basic stuff regarding money, monetary aggregates, money supply, money demand, all these things. Now we have a fairly good understanding about all these things. Now, monetary policy is the measures taken by a country's monetary authority, that is the central bank, to influence money market equilibrium. So, which means, in other words, the stock of money and the interest rate. The stock of money and thereby the interest rate. So, let's look at the functions of the central bank. What does the central bank do to influence the stock of money? And we know that I think these days you all are talking about these things, and you have seen various kind of policy measures that the central bank adopt. But probably in this model world, we are not going to look at in detail all these things. We need only simple explanations about how to influence the stock of money. Because our purpose is a different thing. We are in a model world, and we use these models to understand something else. So the one function that the central bank does in the economy, in influencing the stock of money and using the monetary policy, is to buy and sell government security. So government securities means treasury bills and treasury bonds. So we are familiar with these terms now. However, in this case, we are not going to look at them in detail. What are the treasury bills and what are the treasury bonds? All these things. We use the common term bonds for these government securities. The central bank used to buy and sell these securities. That is to change the stock of securities held by CB and public. So we have two parties here holding the treasury bill. What are the two parties? One is the central bank itself, and other one is public. Two parties. So banks are included under public. So central bank and public, two places where government securities are kept. The central bank can buy government securities from public. What will happen when the central bank purchases securities from the public? Securities will flow into the hands of the central bank, which means there will be money in the hands of public, equivalent amount of money, so that the money stock in the economy will grow accordingly. If you look at the other way around, the central bank sells security to public. Now what will happen? The amount of money in the deposits, will be taken by the central bank, leaving government securities in the hands of public. So in that case, money supply, the stock of money should decline. That's how it operates when the central bank deals with the public, buying and selling. Now, the second function of the central bank is it is the bank of the government. So, as the bank of the government, the central bank can lend to the government by purchasing government securities. So, central bank provide money to the treasury on behalf of money, or in return, the treasury pays to the central bank treasury bills. So, which means the central bank increased the stock of government securities that it holds, but has provided money to the treasury. So, people usually call this money printing. Money printing does not mean that printing the money in the press, but it means whether it is newly printed or not, releasing new stock of money to the economy. That means the stock of money in the economy will grow. That is this second function which affects the money stock. The third function, which is mentioned here as the bank of the commercial bank. Central bank can also lend to the commercial banks in various ways. It can also change reserve ratio limiting that will limit the deposit multiplication process that we discussed last week. So, for example, if the reserve ratio is increased, the commercial bank's ability to increase deposits, multiply deposits will go down. So if the reserve ratio is reduced, it will improve the multiplication process of the commercial bank. So that's how the money stock will change in the economy with the intervention of the central bank. Now, I have given here the blue line here. You can read what is the change in the price level on the money stock, on the stock of money. Yes, because we are talking about the stock of real money balances. That's a concept that we discussed last week, real money balances. So if the price level increases, that means increase in this P. You can see the value of this whole thing will go down. That means a reduction in the real value of the money, which we interpret in our model as the reduction in the stock of money. So in inflationary situation, the money supply decline. What do you mean by money supply? Is the stock of real balance, real money balance. That means the real value of the money stock decline. So monetary policy, depending on which direction all these policy measures are moving, we have two terms using expansionary and contractionary. Expansionary means the policy measures of the central bank leads to an increase in the stock of money, such as increased lending or reduced reserve ratio. In Sri Lanka, this reserve ratio is called SRR, statutory reserve ratio, which is 4% now for long. Contractionary, the opposite case, which leads to a reduction in the stock of money with decreased lending and increased reserve ratio. Okay, so those are how we define expansionary and contractionary monetary policies. And what are the CB objectives? Another question that you need to look at separately and find out. Well, the easiest way is go to the central bank website and then find out what are the objectives of the central bank. Money market equilibrium. Hope you remember the output market, where you have aggregate demand, aggregate supply. Now, in the same way, we have money market. And we are using the Keynesian perspective, Keynesian ideas to understand this. So on the vertical axis, we have interest rate, you can see it here, R. On the horizontal axis, you have money stock, that is real money stock, M over P, and then yes, that's where we wanted. And then the stock of money, which is here MS, and money stock is M naught, price level is P naught, so that real money stock would be M naught over P naught. Downward sloping line, which is the money demand line, and it is money demand at a given income level Y naught. Y naught. So interaction between money demand and money supply, you can see at that point, that is here. Money demand equals money supply. And at that point, through this interaction between these two forces, demand and supply, interest rate average interest rate in the economy is determined as R naught. Now, let's look at some key points to understand this, because usually in macroeconomics, very limited information will be displayed on the graph, but there are a lot of things underneath. So we need to keep that all those things in mind. One thing, money demand curve, I'm reading these lines that we have given here. Money demand curve is downward sloping and money supply curve is vertical. Although we curve, say we introduce them as curves, they are really straight lines. So money's demand is downward sloping. The reason, what is the reason? The reason is demand for money is sensitive to the interest rate. For example, if the interest rate is here, money demand will be here. If the interest rate goes down to here, this level, money demand will go up to this level. So you can see there is an inverse relationship between the two. Now, if I ask you a question, why there is an inverse relation? Why there is an inverse relationship between the stock of money, demand for, and the interest rate? It is because of the bond market, the interaction between money market and the bond market. Don't forget this point because you might need it throughout. It is because of the interaction between money market and the bond market. If the interest rate goes down like this, suppose that we went down to this level, money demand is higher. The reason is, now you can see here we have, if you remember money demand, it depends on income level and the interest rate. Interest rate is here. We take it as a variable here at a given income level. So income level is given at Y naught. So which means now there is an increase in money demand to this level at lower interest rate, and the lower interest rate is here. The reason is speculative demand. Speculative demand. What is speculative demand? When the interest rate is under pressure to go down and down like this. By experience, people know that there is a limit to decline in interest rate. That limit may be different from country to country. There is a limit. So this is a very low level of average interest rate if it is or no. Typical interest rate scenario for Sri Lanka, the new rate is quite low, so that what do the public expect now? People anticipate that the interest rate should go up in the future. That will generate speculation. Speculation. What is speculation? Speculation is not to invest in the bond market when the interest rates are very low, like this. So that all the money that they have in the economy is in the money stock, not in the bond market. Why it is money in the hands of public? Because they anticipate investment in the bond market in the future when the interest rate goes up. Suppose the interest rate is at very high level, like this. Money demand is low. Like the situation right now we have. So what do we expect now? We all know that the country's interest rates are high. Therefore, we expect that the interest rates to fall in the future. Before interest rate falls, people invest in the bond market. So that money demand, that is speculative money demand, is low. Speculative money demand is low. So I think the inverse relationship is clear now. It is because of the speculative money demand which responds to interest rate changes. Therefore, we have an inverse relationship between these two variables. Second, we can see MS curve is vertical. That means this one, money supply line. It is vertical. What is the reason? The reason is it does not respond to interest rate because it is a decision of the central bank or the monetary authority. It's not moving according to interest rate movement because it moves according to what the central bank is doing. Therefore, we need to draw it vertically. Now, there is also another thing that I want to introduce to you. The second point mentioned here, you can see it. Money demand is inelastic at higher interest rate and elastic at lower interest rate, which is not actually on this graph. If I do that graph using some kind of flexible line, more realistic money demand line looks like this. Sorry. Again, sorry. So it should be like this, convex to the origin, convex shape. It's not a straight line. The more realistic one would be convex shape like this. The reason here, we are exploring this point. Money demand is inelastic at higher interest rate, that means this portion, and elastic at lower interest rate, that means this kind of shape. What is the reason? The reason is in every country, public has a kind of understanding about the upper limit and lower limit of what? Of interest rate. Interest rate movements. Upper limit and lower. People don't expect that it has to be 30%, 40%, 50%. Well, situation differ from country to country. But let's take Sri Lanka. Do we expect that our interest rate should go to 50%? No, we don't. We don't expect it to be like that. Recently, it went up to 30%. Somewhere here, 30%, somewhere here. Even if it increased to 35%, you can see there is hardly any change in money demand because it is inelastic there at higher interest rate. The reason is now the out of the total money stock, public is holding the minimum. What is the minimum amount? They need this amount. So the interest rate cannot drive down money demand below that level. There are two reasons. One is, of course, they need to keep minimum amount for other purpose like transaction purpose. The second reason is public anticipate actually their speculation about the interest rate, future interest rate to go down. So when the interest rate goes up to 30% level because of the special crisis situation, some people must have expected to go even higher. But under normal circumstances, if it goes up, always we assume upper limit. Even in a different country, if it goes to 60%, 70%, people increasingly begin to think that in the future, the more possibilities to go down. Even the 15% interest rate, now the policy rates, okay? And we have about 20% interest rate in the market. And if we ask, many people would say that in the future it should go down. So that is our speculation. If we think that it should go down, there is no speculation, money demand at that kind of higher interest rate. That's why this is like this. There is no money for the speculative purpose. All the money that having that speculative character, they are already in the market, the bond market. They are already invested, so that there is no more money in the hands of public expecting to invest in government security. Money demand become inelastic. Now the other end is there is also a lower limit. What does it mean? Lower limit means when the interest rate goes down, like these, we are talking about our more inelastic at higher interest rate and more elastic at lower interest rate. So in this situation, money demand is at this level, lower interest. What is the reason? The reason is again speculation. At this kind of interest rate, lower interest rate, most of the people speculate that it should turn back towards this one. Therefore, there is no way to change the money demand at that lower interest rate at all. That's why whatever the interest rate here, at this level of interest rate, money demand can be infinite. Even anywhere there is the same, because there is no extra money coming to the hands of the people. They all anticipate that when the interest rate goes up, we will put that money in the bond market. So by increasing the stock of money, the monetary policy authorities also, they find it is difficult to change behavior, change the money, because public may not respond to monetary policy measures. Remember, that's why countries which are having very low interest rate, they adopted some unconventional, they were called unconventional monetary policy measures, because interest rate cannot drive down public behavior. So that the most common unconventional monetary policy measure was the predetermined purchase of long-term bonds by the central bank, which was called quantitative easing. Why? The interest rate, normal monetary policy measures had no impact on the money market. Okay, so I think for the analytical purpose, for our easy handling this problem, it is okay to have this downward slope in demand line. Otherwise, our more important changes here are inelastic money demand at higher interest rate and more elastic money demand at lower interest rate, giving us convex shaped money demand line. Now, I have given here 4 points. So again, don't forget these 4 points, because these are very important things. You may also find them macroeconomic issues, and so you might wonder what would be the implications. And in Keynesian view, we are going to look at the implications on the money market. Keynesian view, okay? Keynesian view. Other views we will look at later. Reduction in reserve ratio. Many of you would straight away tell us, oh, I know that there is a reduction in reserve ratio, SRR, so that money supply should go up, interest rate should go down. But my question is, why? Even though your answer is correct, you should know how to explain what are the events, the sequence of events, and then how do we come there, reducing the reserve ratio from that point until reduction in interest rate. There is a channeling mechanism, monetary policy channeling mechanism. What is that channel? Okay, here it is. So we take that one as a case, interest rate effects of reduction in reserve ratio. Reserve ratio, remember last week we talked about alpha, and alpha is the reserve ratio in our model. So in practice, according to Central Bank of Sri Lanka, it is SRR. And what is the SRR ratio? 4%. And if the central bank decides to reduce it 4% to 3%, what will happen? The money stock will grow. Which money stock? Remember, we talk about money stock, that is money supply, as C plus E. So reduction in interest SRR means this D will go up. Which means our money supply goes up. Currency level remains the same. This is C stand for currency. Currency level remains the same and it has no connection to SRR. So we will introduce that change here. What will happen? Money stock now will go up to this level. So the new money stock may be M1 over P0 if there is no inflationary consequences. It is M1 now over P0, the same price level. So that our interest rate would be here. So you are right. What you thought, money supply goes up, money stock, in other words, and the interest rate would decline. Correct. But why? What is the reason? Okay, listen carefully, understand the reason. When reserve ratio is reduced, banks can multiply more money, more deposits. You can understand that by looking at the example of deposit multiplication that we used last time. So instead of given alpha there, you reduce the value of alpha. That's a reduction in reserve rate. And you will find each stage, the deposit, increase in deposits, the value of those deposits is rising, increasing. So ultimately, it is an increase in the stock of money. So we have demonstrated here like this by shifting this money supply line to the right. But why the interest rate goes down now? That is because, you see, this will create excess money in the market. Excess money. That is because our money supply is the red line, but money demand is here. This is money demand. This is money supply. So which means now we have excess money supply, more than public need for transaction purpose and precautionary purpose and speculative purpose. More than the anticipate, the economy has more money. The banks have more money. We call it liquidity, more liquidity in the bank, more money in the hands of the public, and more money in the finance companies everywhere. Wherever it is directed, there will be more money, more liquidity. And now the liquidity level has to be reduced. How do we reduce that liquidity? We transfer part of that to the bond market. Bond market. So with that, what will happen in the bond market? Demand for bonds will go up. Sorry, other way. Yes. Demand for bonds go up. That means it creates an excess demand for government securities because there is excess money. If there is excess demand for government securities, the price of bonds should go up wherever in any of the markets. Whenever there is excess demand, the prices should rise. The same thing applies to bond market. Prices should go up. Now we understood some time back last week how the bond market works. The price and the interest rate move in opposite direction. When the price goes up, interest rate should go down. When the price goes up, interest rate should go down. So we have lower interest rate. Hope you got the point. The second issue, increase in price level. Can you see that the second point here? Increase in price level. That means inflation, the situation. How does it affect our money market? If there is inflation or some external exogenous reason, inflation, because we are talking about this real money stock, M0 over P0. This is the real money stock now, M0 over P0. Now, what we are talking about here is an increase in P0. For example, M0 over P1. P1 is lower than P0. When there is an increase in P0, inflation rate, you can understand now there should a decline in this real stock of money. It should fall. That means this ratio should move in this direction. So obviously we can show it by shifting this line to the left. What will happen? Interest rate will rise. Many people know that when there is more money, when the government prints money, inflation will go up like that, those stories. But when we ask to explain it, we need to explain it. Why the interest rate goes up in inflation? The reason is, now this one, our money demand is here, but our money supply is here. So which means now we have an excess demand to this amount, excess demand for money. Excess demand for money. Inflation creates excess demand for money. Now you know that because of the inflation, the pressure last year, almost more than half of our real value of our money has declined. So we need more money now to maintain our transaction flows. We need more money. So as an economy, the country need more money. So where does that money come from? The bond market. Correct, bond market. So that means there will be less demand but more sales in the bond market. That means excess shortage of supply, shortage of demand, demand shortage, which drive down the price. Because when there is supply, more supply, people demand less, but suppliers increase, prices should go down and the interest rate should go up because price and interest rate move in opposite direction. That's the reason why our interest rate goes up to this level. The third point, increase in national income. That means the country is growing. Does it have an impact in the money market? Yes, it does. How do we show it? Because where is our the variable economic growth is related to increase in national income. Where is that variable? It is here. Y0. So that means we are talking about an increase in the given variable Y0. Increase in the given variable Y0 so that what will happen in the economy is at a higher output level, say Y1, we have higher money demand. So that means this line should shift to the right. As a result of increased money stock. So instead of Y0, now we write Y1. And interest rate has gone up. What is the reason? The reason is, well, I'm not going to explain all these things over and over in the future lectures. So you should be able to, and whatever the policy change or external shock, whatever the things that we bring into our discussion, we should be able to explain implications in the money market like this. If there is an increase in national income, interest rate will be under pressure to go up like this. What is the reason? The reason is now the economic growth has taken place so that we need to maintain the same velocity of money. Velocity of money. It was there in one of those tables that we discussed. That means the same level of output need to be financed by same amount of money. The different levels of output, actually higher level of output, should be financed with money maintaining the same velocity of monetary. So the adjustment would be that we have more output which needs to be financed, but it requires more money into the hands of public, which is not available. Excess money is not there. Therefore, that money should come from the bond market. What will happen in the bond market? There will be more sales and less supply. More sales and less demand, not supply, less demand. More sales, less demand, demand shortage, which means interest rate. The prices should go down and interest rate should go up. The last point, central bank prints money and inflation rises. Two incidences are mentioned here. So, what is the interest rate effects of these two incidents? Central bank prints more money and inflation increases. So, central bank print more money means central bank lend to the government. So, that means again, I'm going to put it under two steps before we combine both steps together. Central bank prints money. What will happen? This money stock will go up. That shows that there is an increase in the stock of money in the economy, and as we see, there is pressure on the interest rate to go down, because the equilibrium point moves to this. But what is next on inflation rises? That means this P note, for the same reason, money printing, or for a different reason, whatever it is, now the price level is going up, which means now the value of this ratio should fall. This means there will be a reduction in the money stock as well. So you can, because we haven't given any percentage reduction or increase, we can draw it anywhere. But the point is that this new money supply line, red line, will move back, maybe to the same point, or even beyond that, depending on our interest rate changes will take place. So suppose that it stop exactly at the same place. If it is at the same place, there is no change in interest rate, because plus and minus can be traded off. But if it goes beyond that, like this, interest rate will rise. The reason is there will be pressure in the bond market. Pressure in the bond market to withdraw more money, to withdraw bonds, because inflation has gone up, so that public need more money. Accordingly, interest rate will go up, price will go down, and the interest rate will go up. Okay, so we have concluded all 4 points, and if you have anything, please let me know.
So, is there a relationship between SRR and the lending rates and the deposit rates?
Uh, you can construct a relationship when the SRR reduces by 1 percentage point. What will be the impact on lending rate or whatever the interest rate? And that kind of relationship can be constructed. Otherwise, there is no theory to say that there is a relationship. The relationship is the deposit multiplication ability of the commercial bank will fluctuate with the changes in SRR. Okay, so shall we move on to next? Now we are going to introduce our new tool, which is called LM curve, and bringing interest rate to our discussion. LM curve, if you remember IS curve, IS schedule, LM schedule is also similar to that. IS schedule represents output market equilibrium with two variables on either side, output, national output or GDP, and interest rate. The same two variables will be here too, but we are focusing on the money market. So the LM schedule represents again the combinations of interest rate and national income required for money market equilibrium. Money market equilibrium is this one. Money supply equals money demand. Combinations of interest rate and income levels needed for money market equilibrium. That is our LM line. We are going to place two graphs on either side. Now here we come with the convex shape money demand line at Y naught interest rate, income level given, and the interest rate is R naught. The second graph you can see R on the vertical axis, but Y on the horizontal axis, not the money, amount of money. So we introduce an increase in output level or national income level. So what happens, as we already know, that will result in an increase in the money demand. So we shifted that line to the right. And as a result, what will happen here, increase in interest rate from R0 to R1. And if we ask why interest rate goes up, I think we can answer now it because the same point we discussed just a minute ago. Interest rate goes up when the economy is growing fast. And that is to establish equilibrium. Now, MD equals MS, money demand equals money supply, first at point A, now at point B. We extend those interest rate here to the second graph. And we know those interest rates are connected to two income levels. One is Y naught. Second one is a higher income level, that is Y1. So we create corresponding A and B points on the second graph. If you connect these points, you can create as many as you want. But if we connect these 2 points, we get a straight line, and which line is called LM. schedule. L stands for liquidity and M for money supply. So we have LM schedule. Any point, I'm going to give you some important points to ponder. Any point on the line, like A and B, shows equilibrium in the money market at different interest rate and income levels. Combinations are different, but equilibrium is restored. Any point on the outside, like point C, here, gives what? It should be disequilibrium, either excess demand or excess supply. How do we understand? We understand by looking at the first graph. How do we understand it? Let's look at the first graph. It shows that money demand is at point C, you can see here, but interest rate is at R0 lower level. So we have excess demand for money. You can see this red color arrow showing excess demand for money. The supply is here. The new money demand is here, excess demand. So which means now this point C gives us excess demand for money. Similarly, you can argue excess supply of money, other side of the line. Okay? So when the market get adjusted, the money market should move towards the line, point B. So this is the other side of the disequilibrium, and where we get excess supply of LM equation. We are going to write down an equation for this line. Then it is easy for us to understand any properties there. Demand for money, it is willingness to hold money. We have already seen that MD equal AY minus what is A, what is P. That is money demand. Money is this one, stock of money. MO, we are looking at real. Okay, so also looking at both are the same. So we write both are the same in this. Now this is the equation for the LM line, but we would rearrange it for interest rate because our IS line is also for R. So where is R here? You can find the R, it is here. And then you rearrange the equation for R. So this is what we get. What is this portion? The first portion of the equation, intercept. And MOP is the real money stock, P is price. 1 over B is the how money demand responds to changes in. And then we have the real given here variable. So easy to understand all these two components, but this is, you can see this not here, only one possibility of the LM line. one possibility, because there are other possibilities also depending on our assumptions, depending on how we define the variable. This LM equation with negative intercept and constant gradient is one of the many possibilities, probably the simple one, most simple. Other possibilities need to be studied at higher levels. We can read the textbooks, and then find out what are the other possibilities of an LM equation, and expand your knowledge also. But this is okay for the moment. Now, let's look at taking that equation, the properties. Of this line. This is upward sloping. Yes, schedule is downward sloping. This is upward sloping. The reason is an increase in income requires higher interest rate to restore the equilibrium in the money. So there is a question, you can ponder alone this question and then write down a brief answer to this question. Why the LM schedule is upward slope? Remember, we are looking at equilibrium in the money market. And so this has something to do with the combination of or movements of interest rate and income level. Then we have intercept. This is our intercept. An increase in real money stock. If there is an increase in real money stock, LM curve will shift to the right. How does it move to the right? Because that intercept with the minus sign should move further down. That is the reason. LM curve shift to the right. What makes the changes in real money stock? That's the point that we discussed. So, thirdly, gradient. Gradient is A over B. So if you remember A and B, it will determine the slope of the LM schedule. So an increase in A, or decrease B, LM curve becomes steeper. We can saying increase in B, A, or decrease in B like that, but there is an economic meaning behind. And that economic meaning is the more important. Okay, so that meaning of A and B will tell you why the LM becomes steeper. If MD becomes highly sensitive to changes in interest rate, that is an economic point. How does LM schedule change? If MD becomes sensitive, more sensitive to changes in interest rate, actually what happens is we are talking about this B, letter B, the coefficient simple B. That shows the sensitivity of money demand to changes in interest rate. So if it becomes highly sensitive, means this value of this B should rise. If it rises, because it is the denominator here, the value of this B rises, what will happen? The whole ratio will fall. The value of the whole ratio will decline. That means LM curve becomes steeper. Oh, sorry, flatter. LM curve will be less the slope will decline. That means it becomes flatter than the initial one. So like that, we will introduce some economic meanings, all these symbols that we have used for the equation. Accordingly, we will change the appearance of our LM schedule, the position or the slope, and which are important for our economic analysis based on that. Finish the lesson, and we have to start a new lesson, and I guess that we can start it next week. Let me know if you have any questions.
So with regards to the expansionary and contractionary area you covered in the first slide, examples would be for expansionaries during COVID times where they printed more money, is it? And
Yeah,
for
the terms, general terms that we use for those two things: loose monetary policy, relaxed monetary policy. So those are the terms that we use for expansion. So if you remember, during the COVID time, more money was available and money was printed and more credit was expanded to the banking system, and government asked banks to lend more to SMS, what are those SME sector and those things. So that is expansion. Contractionary is the general term that we use in our business circles. Tight monetary policy, tight monetary tightening. So with those things, we should understand that means reduction in money stock or increasing interest rate.
so the purpose of the DDR recently is to contract the money supply that is going on. Is it so that to limit the printed money?
No. It's not for DDR. It is for responding to higher inflation. Because in inflationary situation, the central banks all over the world traditionally the most popular policy measure that they take is increase the policy rates, increase the interest rates. That is to reduce aggregate demand. So by cutting down aggregate demand, because interest rate is one important variable which determine aggregate demand, by cutting down aggregate demand, the central bank can reduce inflation rate. So that is the reason. It has nothing to do with DDR. DDR is for achieving debt sustainability. How to sustain the country's foreign and local debt and then make it a little burdensome for us to continue repayment.
And so when you're talking about interest rates right now, it's the SRR ratio, the SRR rate you were talking about, is it?
No, SRR is not interest rate. It is called reserve ratio. When I say interest rate, it is the average interest rate in the economy. So that average interest rate means it includes all the deposit rates, lending rates, transaction rates related to the bank sector. So savings rate, fixed deposit rate, prime lending rate, all of them. And we are in the model, we talk about an average interest rate. It's not unusual or unreal to talk about average rate because all the rates are moving in the same direction, same time. So when we say interest rate, that average rate we are referring.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, can you please go to the first slide that you showed, the expansionary economy and contraction economy?
First slide. Today, first slide.
Expansion, monetary policy, expansion economy and
This one.
yeah, here, sir. Now in an expansionary economy, should the interest rates go down or should it increase?
Go down, should go down because expansion remains. Particularly, we are looking at one variable that has to be the aggregate demand. So increased lending is increased aggregate demand so that people borrow more. Reduce reserve ratio, that means banks can increase their deposit multiplication so that lending will be more. And you can also add decline in interest rates. So which means again expansionary effect in the economy because it will improve aggregate demand.
Okay, sir. Got it.
Okay, right. So if there are no questions, thank you for joining today. You can stop now. Right. See you then again next day.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.